some Lee's chicken right here. So I'm going to enjoy some Lee's chicken. Before I do that, I have a shout out. I have one right here. Okay. Now it's Bobby from Robstown, Texas. It's spelled Bob-I, but I'm going to say Bobby from Robstown, Texas. So, big shout out to you, my friend. Thank you for tuning in and enjoying my videos like you do. And I thank you for your comments. Bobby sounds like a cool guy. And a big shout out to the rest of you as well, okay? Big shout out to everyone out there in the land of awesome. Okay, I got some Lee's chicken. And I'm gonna, can't wait to open this up. I'm starving. I'll move it over here for a second. Wow, look at that. Oh boy. There's my biscuit. Oh wow, look at that. There's my gravy. Got a whole mess of fries. Got even more fries in here. They always give you a lot of fries. Guess that's a good thing. There we are. Now, pour a little bit over there like that. Love their gravy. So, February the 9th, 1964. My life changed forever. I know that sounds a little bit wacky, but it's true. I was 6 years old. And, put these over here. Very close to my 7th birthday, but I was still 6 years old. Dr. Pepper in a Pepsi container. And, the Ed Sullivan Show used to come on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. It was a family staple in our house. That was family time. I would watch the Flintstones. We'd watch Ed Sullivan, 8 o'clock to 9, and Bonanza from 9 to 10. That's the only time that us kids got to stay up till 10 o'clock. And on a Sunday night, that was a real privilege. I got the 3-piece spicy extra crispy. I love Lee's chicken. It is just unbelievable. I love it. Check out this crunch. I love their chicken the best. So good. Man, that skin is amazing. So February the 9th, 1964. Let's back up a week earlier. The Ed Sullivan Show was a variety show. It had jugglers and performers and singers and dancers, and you'd see different people in there, like Perry Como, I love a parade, stuff like that. They had a little puppet mouse called Topo Gijo that my sister and I loved watching. She was 3 years older than me. She's the one who lives with my mom. So we would watch the show as a family. And so, the week before, February the 9th, Ed Sullivan at the end of the show would say, next week I'm having so-and-so on, so-and-so, this person, that person. He announced he'd be having the image I had in my brain. I was picturing puppet beetles. Like some beetles, like, real insect beetles as puppets. That's what I was picturing. I didn't know what the Beatles were. Never heard of them. But I was about to find out. This gravy is unbelievable. We have a lot of chicken places in town. Popeyes is good. Colonel Sanders is not as good as it used to be. We got different ones, A lot of them are very good. But the one thing about Lee's, like for instance, when I go to Popeyes or different other places, the chicken's under the heating lamp. They just put in a box and give it to you. Go to Lee's, it's always, okay, they'll say it'll be about, 6 or 7 minutes. Because they put it into a basket, put the deep fryer, and they cook it right there. Always fresh, always hot, always moist. So I was picturing these puppet Beatles. So February the 9th, 1964, while sitting there watching TV, Ed Sullivan announces the Beatles. The Beatles. Crowd goes crazy. I see these 4 guys come out. They start playing. I just stood and stared. I'd never seen nothing like that. I'd never heard nothing like that. That music, I just couldn't contain myself. I had to move, This wasn't Barry Como or, Frankie Avalon or whoever, right? This was the Beatles. Now, I missed the Elvis thing. Totally missed the Frank Sinatra thing. Nothing wrong with those performances, but they were just before my time. Slightly missed Elvis. But the Beatles, they were right there. Right at the right time for me. They're all wearing these nice black suits. They were just playing. No fancy dance steps, nothing in sync, nothing like that. Just playing. Ringo's just giving her. And their hair. I mean, everybody back in those days had they'd use that greasy kid stuff and, that sort of greaser look. These guys had that hair down. What they called a Beatle haircut. I mean, I'd never seen nothing like it. Even Moe and the Three Stooges couldn't quite pull it off. And Howard on Big Bang Theory looks even more ridiculous. But in a way, they all kind of look the same. They all have the same hairstyles. Dark suits, playing guitars, and I mean playing, just giving her. Paul will count them in, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I saw her standing there, just belting it out. I was transfixed, I was transformed. Never seen nothing like that in my whole life. Never heard nothing like that. So they were on the first half of the show and the second half of the show. And I'd never seen an audience reaction like that. I'd watched Ed Sullivan Show for so many times with my parents and my sisters, the whole family. Nobody ever came on and attracted that kind of a response from an audience. Some people look at the Beatles now that think, well, it's a big deal. Well, that's the way I feel when I look at, Frank Sinatra or, Paul Anka, Wayne Newton. It just didn't do anything for me. You have to have been there at that point in time, I think, to really have it impact you. Next day I went to school. I was in grade 1. I found myself drawing pictures of the Beatles on pieces of paper, on my books, or whatever. I was just dumbfounded by what I'd seen the night before. Funny enough, a lot of the kids who came to school said they didn't like them. I think that may have been because they were influenced by their parents. I had this one friend named Curtis, and we were in the lineup after recess, queuing up, waiting to go back into school. And I said, "Do you like the Beatles?" He nodded with a smile, almost like you didn't dare really tell people how you really felt about the Beatles, right? You either loved them or hated them. My parents hated them. In time, my dad would grow to appreciate them more. He really hated their hair. I remember him talking to our neighbor. And the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, I think, 3 weeks in a row, if I remember correctly. He was talking to a neighbor, and they agreed that hair couldn't be real. Couldn't be. They had to be wearing wigs. That couldn't possibly be real. They were convinced that 4 guys could never have that kind of hair. I thought it was like totally cool. And like I said, the Beatles fascinated me, everything. Their look. Their sound, their music, their performance. Their charisma. Even though I didn't know what charisma was back then. Everything about them fascinated me. The way they talked, I'd never heard an English accent before. I never heard any kind of an accent. I spent the first 5 years of my life in Buffalo Gap, Saskatchewan. I don't recall ever hearing an accent. Got a wing. So anyways, time goes on, my best friend Richard and I, we were both blown away by the Beatles. Oh my gosh. We were just nuts about them. first time somebody got a Beatle record. I think it was one of his sisters got a Beatles 45. And my oldest sister Sharon, who was about 10 years older than me, she had some Beatles 45 she bought. And we'll listen to them over and over and over. I'll never forget. The old 45. Yellow and sort of orange capital label. Yellow and orange. That beautiful, rich black vinyl. It was almost shiny and oily. It was just beautiful. Records back then were $1.05. $1 for the record and 5-cent sales tax. We would just put those records on and listen to them over and over and over. My sister Sharon, who was, like I said, a little bit older by about 10 years, had a portable record player that my brother sent her from Germany when he was stationed over there in the Air Force. And she put the records on there and just played them and played them and played them. She wasn't quite as crazy about the Beatles as we were. She was more Elvis, you know, the Everly Brothers, Roy Orbison. Nothing wrong with that at all. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with that at all. I love all those performers, I do. But that time I had a one-track mind, and that was the Beatles. And she was good enough to buy a couple of records and let us play them all the time on a record player. I remember listening to a full album. Wow. It was just unbelievable. Their very first album was mostly cover tunes. Didn't really sound like the Beatles. But the albums they released of all their own stuff, couldn't get enough of it. I still have my record called Something New. I still have that. I still have some Beatles records on CD and vinyl, but what I like about this one is it's my original one that I got when I was a kid back in '65, I think. I still have that. We used to have tons of 45s. I have no idea what happened to them. So I had a little niece. Was about 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old when the Beatles came out. She was autistic. I shouldn't say was, she's still with us, still alive. And I still correspond with her by snail mail. You could put any record on. It didn't do anything for her. The minute you put on the Beatles, she was like that. Bouncing up down, she loved the Beatles. Loved the Beatles. Those guys had music that you just couldn't help but tap your toe to. I don't care who you were. I had to move. I couldn't contain myself. I had to move. I had to, So Beatle cards were a real big thing. Beatle cards. We used to collect Beatle cards you could get for 5 cents. Get a pack of Beatle cards. cards, black and white pictures, 5 cards, and a flat stick of gum, about that long, that wide, just a flat stick of bubble gum for 5 cents. Man, I spent all my money on Beatle cards. My favorite Beatle is George Harrison. Why, you ask? Well, I love their buttermilk biscuits. I think George is my favorite Beatle because Paul and John Roy's forefront and center, kind of, or forefront, George, even though he would silent to Paul and sing at the microphone, which I thought was a totally coolest thing I'd ever seen, because they would share a mic, right? Which I'd never seen before. But aside from that, he was always kind of sort of back a little ways, kind of a little bit more subdued, which is kind of how I am, right? I'm not one to try and steal the show or nothing like that. I kind of identify with George in that regard. So he became my favorite Beatle. So we'd always collect Beatle cards. They were always black and white. Eventually, I think around 66, they came out with colored ones. For some reason, I like the black and white better. I used to have this picture of George Harrison. He's sitting with his guitar and he's plugging in his amp like that. And my older sister Sharon had this boyfriend. He thought that was the coolest thing he'd ever seen. He would sit there and he would look at that Beatles card, just stare at it. He just thought that was the coolest picture he'd ever seen. I thought, good for you, dude. Right on. It was a cool picture. Now the marketing was out of control on the Beatles. People are making money off them. Somebody came out with Beatle wigs and Beatle boots. I wish I thought of that, because they sold like hotcakes. I got the Beatle wig. Whatever happened to it is beyond me, but when you put it on, it was like you almost had a skunk on your head or something, It was kind of funny. Some kind of an animal. But when I wore my Beatle wig and my Beatle boots, I thought I was the coolest guy on the planet. Beatle boots were just high heel and a long pointed toe. They were maybe that high, up past your ankle. Not very tall. But my friend Rich and I wanted to emulate the Beatles so bad. always lip sync. Now, lip syncing was not a term I probably ever heard till about the 80s, believe it or not. So, we didn't know we were lip syncing. We just put on Beatles music and I'd stand here and Richard'd stand there. Use a tennis racket, whatever we had. And we pretend we were the Beatles. And if we could pull somebody off the street to be John or Ringo, all the better. So anyway, I no longer have my Beatles 45 records or my Beatle cards or my Beatle wig or boots. I wish I did. They'd be a blast to look at now. But anyways, we always used to get together in Richard's basement, pretend we're the Beatles. So Richard always wanted to be Paul, I always wanted to be George. Wasn't hard to find somebody to be John, but nobody really wanted to be Ringo. Anyways, oh, look at that. Look at that. Ain't that something? That's a thing of beauty, let me tell you. So, Richard had a couple older sisters. They had girlfriends. They decided that we should put on a show. Called The Beatles Come to Town. And we would put on the show in the basement, invite a bunch of neighborhood kids. And we'd have, Kool-Aid or Freshie, what do they call it back then, I drank the Kool-Aid, man, have Kool-Aid. And snacks. My mom made some kind of a cake or something. And the mothers all made stuff. So they set this thing up. They sent out an invitation. No, they went around, knocked on doorbells that morning. Or rang doorbells, knocked on doors. Invited the parents and the kids. Usually the dad was at work, but most moms are stay-at-home moms. So that afternoon at about, I guess maybe 2 o'clock, all these people showed up. And there was probably about a good 40 people there in the basement. It was just unbelievable. Mostly kids. Now I have a picture of that. I have a picture to show you. My friend Richard. Rest in peace, Richard. He was Paul. He's on your left-hand side. I'm in the middle. I'm George. Clifford English is to your far right, and his brother Randy. Is playing drums. All we could find was a couple big moving boxes, but what the heck, it worked, right? And he didn't really play. We just lip-synced, right? The microphones, we got some molding. Each one's about 4 feet long. Stuck it in a tin can, grabbed some rocks and some paper in there. And it was really quite the event. One of my viewers complained one time about seeing my bones here. I forgot to bring something over here to put them in. Anyways. So, we had somebody playing the records, probably one of his sisters or one of Rich's sisters, gal pals. Every time they put on a record, we just start, lip syncing and playing, pretend we were the Beatles, and I'd go up to sing beside, Richard, who was Paul, right? And we'd all seen the Beatles enough. We knew how to act, right? And the little kids, was just so amazing that these young girls who were probably only about maybe 11 or 12 years old organized this whole thing. And they cut all these pieces of paper and said the Beatles coming down, hung and strung them like that. Chance to see the Beatles. I wish, but never did. It's funny, every time I would see bands on TV after that, if they didn't have an image that conformed to, to my interpretation of the way the Beatles looked, the way they should look, they didn't conform to the Beatles' image in my mind. I didn't really have much use for them. No, some bands like the Dave Clark Five, they had Beatle haircuts in a few bands, and of course the Rolling Stones came on. They did their own thing. They were just cool as it was. I love the Stones. And I like the Dave Clark Five too. But the Beatles are a league of their own. I was so disappointed when they stopped touring. I was disappointed when they started changing their image, like growing mustaches and beards and growing their hair longer. It's almost like, what happened to my Beatles, So, remember, there's a couple of Beatles movies. The Hard Day's Night was the first one. It was filmed in black and white. Help was filmed in color. So I saw Help first. I love that movie. I remember seeing that movie, just loving it. I was just, oh man, I couldn't believe I was seeing the Beatles. And then, at some point, a few months later, they had a double feature with Hard Day's Night and Help. I went and saw both. Double feature with my sister. I remember eating too much popcorn and feeling really sick. So when the movie was finished, we were waiting for the bus. Got on the bus. Started going. I was just feeling really, really sick. And I had the window seat. And my sister's sitting here, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to throw up." And I started throwing up. She actually put her hand over my mouth. I don't think I'd do that, but I just ended up puking right in the middle of the bus. Oh God, all this popcorn. Oh God. So we got off. I had it over my jacket. Got a transfer, got the next bus. After I puked, I felt better. But Hard Day's Night was good. Kind of wacky, It was mainly just about being chased around by all their fans. They couldn't go anywhere without being chased by their fans and all that, I would love to have seen the Beatles, but they never played Sullivan Show, but the concert was in New York. MSG, I guess. But you got a chance to meet them. They were interviewing him on the radio. I was so jealous. This gravy's so good. That's pretty much my Beatles story. Apple pie. They make good apple pies. Wow. Still nice and warm. I understand people saying that, the Beatles overrated, whatever. But I guess you had to be there, You have to admit, they were not together really that long. I think about, I think with, the Paul, George, John, Ringo was only about maybe 8 years, I think. And man, they really turned out a lot of music. Like their repertoire is massive, absolutely massive. I found that their records were the only ones at that time that were every song was good. A lot of times you buy a record and it'd have one good song and the rest was just filler, or maybe 2 or 3 songs, the rest, just terrible. But I'll never forget those days. We'd be swinging on the swings back and forth, just singing Beatles songs, just constantly. I remember being at the point that if somebody didn't like the Beatles, I couldn't relate to them. I know some people just didn't have an opinion one way or another, but some people just really despise them. Well, that was delicious. So there it is, my friends. Good old East chicken. Anyways, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you want a birthday wish or shout out, hit me up. Just give me lots of advance notice, okay? Because as always, my videos are posted at least 2 weeks in advance. They're scheduled, recorded and scheduled. So there it is. My Lee's chicken. I know I've been asking about an epic story of Lee's chicken, so there it is. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and we'll see